Hi everyone, welcome back to our podcast Moving to Australia. This week we will be talking about temporary skill shortage visa subclass 482. This temporary visa lets an employer sponsor a suitably skilled worker to fill a position they can't find a suitably skilled Australian to fill. And joining me in the studio this week to discuss that is the founder of Debika Migration Services, Amitava Deb. So Amitava, hope you're doing well. Let's start with the obvious question. How can an employer sponsor an overseas worker for a 482 visa?
Okay. How can an employer? Well, I guess there are three stages. Let me take a step back. I think today we are going to discuss about those who are here on a 482 visa, how they can get PR. But yeah, let's touch a little bit upon uh, how can an employer sponsor someone on the 482 visa or a temporary skills shortage visa. So the first step is for the employer to apply to be an approved sponsor or a labor agreement. Once they have this sponsorship approval for 4 years or a labor agreement approval for five, no, it's not 4 years, sorry, 5 years, within that 5 year span, they can, provided they have the capacity to pay and have the requirement for skilled workers, they can nominate, number one, and then number two, after the nomination, the applicant can apply for the visa. For nomination, there is a requirement to select an occupation from the list of available occupations for this visa. And the applicant must have at least 2 years of acceptable experience in that occupation. Acceptable usually means post-qualification experience of at least 40 hours a week or a part-time, no, not part-time, or a full-time equivalent to 2 years of work experience in that occupation. So, for example, if someone is a software engineer, then must have be a graduate and must have 2 years of experience. And the company sponsoring the software engineer must have a requirement for a software engineer and must have the capacity to pay for the software engineer in Australia at the market rate. Yeah,
So
the
there
market
is,
rate.
sorry to cut you off there. So that means there is
Mhm.
an income threshold that the employer has to meet when they nominate an overseas worker?
There are two things. One is the income threshold of $70,000, which is minimum for any occupation. And the other one is the market threshold or the market salary for that occupation. So even though 70,000 is the income threshold, minimum income threshold for it to visa, a software engineer cannot be paid 70,000 because in the Australian market, a software engineer earns at least $100,000. So the idea is you cannot bring an employer, pay them less, and disadvantage a local. You must pay them at par because they have skills that an equivalent Australian, if they had that skill, would be paid a certain amount of money. That amount must be paid. Yeah. So I think those who are listening, they should really go and do some research. A lot of companies, I might be shocked because I'm saying this, but a lot of companies underpay their employees on 482 visa. They pay them less than the market rate. And how do they get away with it? Because they are accredited sponsors. A lot of Indian IT companies are accredited sponsors. So their pays, the salaries are not audited. Hence, they get away with paying less salary than the market rate. And it is exploitation. I wish Home Affairs look into this matter.
So let's go back to accredited sponsors a bit. Can you explain to our listeners what does that mean?
Accredited sponsors are those who meet certain criteria. They have certain um, certain turnover, they have already um, nominated certain number of employers. So I think those are the things that we are not discussing today. We are discussing today how someone who is on a 482 visa, how can they get access to PR? That is more important,
All right.
right?
So when someone qualifies for a 482, there are so many different streams: short-term stream, medium-term stream, and there's also a labor agreement.
Mhm.
So can you explain the differences, key differences for short-term and medium-term?
Short-term visa is, sorry, short-term stream, not visa, short-term stream or medium-term stream. These are based on the occupation selected. If the occupation is on the medium term list, it's called MLTSSL, then it's a medium term stream. If the occupation is on the short term list, then it is the short term stream. There was a distinction prior to November last year. The reason of that distinction being medium term stream has access to pathway for PR through um, onshore subclass 186 transition pathway. Short-term stream did not have the access to PR. Right now, regardless of the stream, everyone on 482 visa has access to PR pathway. So I think if someone gets confused on short term, long term, do not get confused. Do not even talk about it. It does not matter whether they are on short term or long term. Everyone has equal rights to apply for the visa, for the PR visa, provided their employer agrees to it. Now, here is the catch. The employer has to agree to it. In in those days, earlier, prior to November last year, employers deliberately placed their employees on the short-term stream because they would not compensate because short-term streams did not have access to PR. Now short-term streams have access to PR. So to summarize, if somebody is here on a 482 visa, regardless of the stream, after 2 years of working here, they can in fact apply for PR provided the employer agrees to sponsor them or nominate them. Now, in most cases, probably 70 to 80% of cases, the employers do not agree. And why they do not agree? They'll spend so much of money, and they will spend their efforts in nominating someone, and that person at the end of the period, once they get the PR, they leave. There is no law that can stop them from leaving. So the employers are hesitant to apply for PR. Whereas if the same employee or is on uh, yes with that employer, the employer most probably will continue. They will not leave because they cannot leave until they find another employer to transfer their nomination.
So in a situation like that, if someone is in a quandary where the employer refuses to sponsor or not sponsor their PR, then what does one do?
Or they come to me because they then qualify, they can qualify for onshore skilled independent category visas, depending on their education and background. And the occupation they select under the skilled migration category need not be the same as the occupation which is on their TSS visa. They always ask me this question. Can I select the same, or can I apply if I select a different occupation? So this is FAQ number one. Can I select a different occupation? Yes, you can. So someone who is here and on the TSS visa, it says ICT support engineer. They can definitely get a skills assessment as a software engineer based on their experience and education, or maybe mechanical engineer based on their qualification, or engineering technologist. There's so many options. And then have different pathways to PR. The applicant can anytime, at any point of time, can apply for independent category PR while they're holding the 482 visa. So they can start working on the independent category PR as they land in Australia or even before they land in Australia. Does it make sense?
Yeah, sure. And what is the cost involved for an employer to nominate an overseas worker for a temporary skill shortage visa?
For 482 visa, it depends on the turnover of the employer. If the company turnover is less than $10 million, then the nomination charge is $330 plus $1,200 for every year of nomination. If the turnover is more than $10 million, it is $330 plus $1,800 for every year of nomination.
Now, you mentioned that there have been cases where the employer refuses to sponsor an overseas worker on a 482 for a PR. Can you share the struggles of some of those clients of yours? What happened and how did they eventually get past that and secure permanent residency?
In most cases, they know their employers will not sponsor them. Before they come, their employers tell them. TCS, for example, tells them, we will not sponsor your PR. They know.
And how has DMS helped them in the past?
So that's what I wanted to say. DMS can always help them if they come and ask us to review their background and check their eligibility, whether they're eligible for independent pathway to PR at any point of time. As soon as they land in Australia, they come to us. We will do a free evaluation and tell them whether they're eligible. And then if they want to go ahead, they can book a call with us to understand better. And then if they still want to go ahead, they can. So that's how we help.
So, any final thoughts on this for people listening on 482? What they should be aware of?
I think a lot of people are confused about two things. One is if they are holding 482, is there a conflict if they apply for PR? The answer is these two are totally independent of each other. If you're holding 482, you can still apply for PR. There is no bar or there no stopping for you to go and apply for PR. And there's another question they keep asking is on the TSS visa, there is an occupation. And if they apply for PR, they think that they have to select that occupation only. And the answer is no, you can select any occupation you want. It does not have to match the one on TSS. As I said, these two are totally independent of each other. People who are here in Australia on a TSS visa, they can apply for PR. Those who are on a 485 visa, which is post-study work visa, they can also apply for PR. Anyone can apply for PR.
So, thank you, Amitava, for your time. For those of you listening, thank you for tuning in. And if you are on a 482 or a 485 and you need any help towards your PR, please contact Amitava. The links to DMS's social media and Amitava's LinkedIn will be in the podcast description. Give us a call and someone will be able to help you out. So thank you for listening, folks, and we'll see you next week.